What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. And it's going to be a rather calm and kind of just boring forecast overall. It's going to be looking at the overall weather pattern and as well weather changes in the pattern for this upcoming week, all the way towards around the first few days of May. We're looking at the overall area that can be seeing colder weather, warmer weather, where we can be seeing our snow chances as well, where we can be seeing an enjoyable last days of basically April. So let's go ahead and get in the forecast. But before we actually get deeper into the video, I would recommend you guys subscribe to the channel as I'm gonna start posting more regular and a more regular schedule now that I'm basically having a lot more time, especially as we get closer to summer. So yeah, I would recommend you guys subscribe and as well smash that like button. Let's go ahead and get into the forecast. So we're gonna be starting off with the uh, GFS 12Z 500 millibar high anomaly to kind of give the overall general look at the kind of the pattern in the upper levels here. So this is kind of looking at right now. So obviously we were basically currently seeing a blizzard kind of going on there across the North Dakota area and basically across the upper Midwest. So that's why, because we do have a pretty strong mid-level trough. I apologize, someone walked in. So yeah, we do have a mid-level trough here across the overall general region across the upper Midwest. We do have a pretty strong bridging pattern, which is why we are seeing a pretty warm and as well dry eastern United States right now. I'm currently sitting at like 80 degrees for the high, or actually like 83 degrees for the high today. So that's kind of why we are starting to see some kind of that southeast ridge and overall eastern ridging finally starting to amplify. And then we do have a pretty strong trough here in the Pacific Northwest and in the Gulf of Alaska. And that's going to be playing a part into kind of the pattern for later this week here. As we go to around Tuesday, nothing really changing necessarily. You're going to be seeing kind of that warmer weather really starting to kind of be felt across New England and the upper Northeast as that kind of rich amplifies as that trough nears, and then we kind of see some more kind of just weaker zonal flow across the rest of the United States. So we'll be pretty warm, specifically across kind of the central U.S., southwest, and then we're gonna start seeing kind of this pattern setting up. So we're gonna start seeing basically we're gonna start seeing practically a troughing pattern across the Pacific Northwest. So we're gonna start seeing a negative PNA. So we're gonna be seeing that troughing across the Northwest, seeing that ridging across Alaska, and that's just going to allow for some zonal flow on the central United States, and then some troughing going on across the Great Lakes and some troughing going on across the Northwest. So it's going to kind of be your typical spring pattern. We're going to be seeing some snow chances developing next week with this trough moving in the Northwest. So we could very well see kind of a pattern like we saw with basically yesterday, like a storm for North Dakota or Montana or Wyoming. But the East is going to start seeing a polar opposite weather that we saw that we're going to be starting with. So we're going to go from really warm on like sun today, tomorrow, and Tuesday to starting to cool off a lot by Thursday. We're going to start seeing some Arctic, or not Arctic, some Greenland high developing that's going to allow for kind of a really significant troughing pattern across the Northeast. So you guys are going to start seeing a really cold pattern developing later this week here. Still going to be pretty zonal across the central U.S. So central U.S., you guys are going to be relatively warm and sunny for like the whole week. And the only areas that are going to be experiencing some type of weather change is going to be the Northeast and it's going to be the West. So it's going to be the tips of the U.S. basically are going to be seeing the colder weather. So you're going to kind of be seeing kind of this middle, like kind of blocking high pressure, just sitting there with a very strong trough in the Northeast and a pretty relatively moderate trough in the West. And it's going to be by Friday, the 29th of April. And then as we go towards really the 30th, we finally start to get some type of cooler weather in the New England, or not in New England, in the plains and into the Midwest. But that's going to be by May 1st. So really relatively going to be pretty warm across the plains and the Gulf Coast and even I'd say even probably the Southwest will be relatively warm for the majority of the week, while the Northeast are going to be seeing a drastic change in weather between just Tuesday and Thursday. Same thing with the Pacific Northwest. Pretty big change from today and tomorrow towards the middle of the week. So, what is all that going to really mean when it comes to the actual weather? So, Like I said, we're gonna be seeing the storm right now across the North Dakota area. You're gonna be seeing most of that actual precipitation kind of to the west of that cold front, and that's just how it is in spring, especially in the late part of spring. So we are almost in May already. That's gonna be today. Let's now go ahead and towards really tomorrow. So like I said, we are gonna start seeing some pretty strong ridging going on across the northeast. So we could get as the cold front does catch up, we'll get a few showers, but nothing too crazy or severe weather. But as we now go towards the trough moves in the Pacific Northwest, you're gonna be seeing some more snow developing in that colder area, and you can kind of see a lot of ridging going on across the central U.S. But as we now go kind of towards Thursday, this we're going to be seeing a potential snow opportunity for the upper Midwest here. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, it's going to be a very boring week. We're not even watching out for that much severe weather. Like I said, we're going to be seeing kind of some snow opportunities maybe for the Montana and Wyoming areas. And then those warmer areas. It's to the point we're in the point of spring where you're not going to be seeing snow anymore across South Dakota or Nebraska. At this point, you're just going to be seeing snow across Yellowstone and the far upper Great Lakes. That's how warm it's gonna start. You can kind of see it's gonna start to try to bring in some snow here, but it's just way too warm. So that's what I'm saying. Like the majority of the central U.S. can be relatively very warm for compared to their average. So you're gonna try to get a storm here, and you may get a few flurries mixing in, but it's gonna be start to get so warm that all of this is gonna just basically be rain. So that's how far we are getting into the spring pattern. That's how warm it's gonna start getting across the plains later this week. But we also do have some snow opportunities, possibly in the higher elevation across the Northeast with that very significant drop. But that's going to be much later in the week, like a Thursday or Friday. Could get a few snow showers across Maine and maybe even towards Mount Washington. Maybe even possibly some our very last ever lake effect snow for the year or for the season for the areas like Erie and Buffalo and Jamestown. You guys will probably be experiencing your last lake effect, possibly last lake effects for the year. And then look at how this translates towards the actual temperature anomalies and how much warmer it's going to be compared to your average. Like I said, very significant ridging across the eastern U.S. Today. Your warmest effects or your more significant effects compared to your average is going to be across the Great Lakes, where we're going to be seeing areas up towards around 25 degrees above average. That's going to be kind of towards the Michigan area. You kind of see that really sharp temperature gradient. Pretty cooler across, cooler stuff across the west for the beginning of the week today. But as that ridge kind of gets pushed out, it's going to start to amplify. So you're going to kind of get your peak warm weather across the east and much of I-95 basically tomorrow and even Tuesday for some areas. But there is that really significant cold air kind of rushing in. So North Dakota and the upper Midwest and the plains, you guys will get some cold taste this week here, but that will kind of change as we get towards a little bit later in the week, towards around maybe Wednesday when that ridging starts to really amplify. But it's gonna be like a kind of a roller coaster across the east. You're gonna be seeing some areas really cold, some areas very warm. So your best chance to see warm weather is gonna be kind of along the coast. Um, but yeah, as we now kind of see how warm it is across the plains there on Thursday. You guys are basically in between the troughing across the east and troughing across the west. So if you're in the plains, you guys are right in the middle of all that. And unfortunately, you guys are in the warmer part of the middle, and you kind of see how warm it gets here across the plains, around 20 degrees above average, while much of the other majority of the U.S. is getting around 15 degrees, or even maybe even 10 to 15 degrees below average. You can kind of see how warm it gets. But yeah, look at that. Kansas and Oklahoma, you guys are seeing 27 degrees above average. That is, looking at your average is really warm enough. If you look at the actual temperature, it's going to be around, that's almost like a high 90s right there. While the rest of the other areas in the vicinity are like in the 70s and 80s. So that's definitely not going to be enjoyable if you're like in uh Oklahoma City, or if you're like in even Dodge City. Where else can we see? Wichita Falls, Texas. You guys are gonna be absolutely just hammered by that heat. And then by later in the weekend, we start to see that other system, significant system developing, trying to bring in some snow across the plains. That's going to be kind of be that really cold air starting to once arrive. Finally, once again arrive in the plains, but as we go towards like May 3rd and all that, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here's last but not least the overall snow opportunities. So like I said, majority of that snow is gonna be kind of be across the higher elevations, and same thing in the northeast because could be seeing a few inches, maybe half a foot in the highest elevations. But you can kind of just tell by this map for the whole week that this snow cover is finally basically done. You're gonna get still a few inches, or not a few inches, possibly a couple feet across Yellowstone, across finally it's time for some good snow across Colorado. And I'm not necessarily how not necessarily how I can't get the word out. I'm not sure exactly how accurate this South Dakota and Nebraska is, because they try to get the snow and they have it accumulating. This is Kachira, so I don't know. I'm not gonna bank on this happening, but this is obviously gonna happen because this is basically like happening today for the rest of today, and then we'll have possibly another system on April 29th. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's kind of just a quick recap of what we could possibly see this week. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.